ICQ Podcast episode 353, Parks on the Air and XIEGU Transceiver review. Well, hello fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 353rd episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast. Supported this episode by Jeffrey Montgomery and of course our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1MRB is joined by Leslie, Golf Zero, Charlie India Bravo, Dan, Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, and Edmund, Mike Zero, Mike November Golf to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin, M6BRY, rounds up the news in brief. And this episode, we have a double feature for you. We have Parks on the Air by our colleague Bill Barnes, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and a review of the XIEGU G90 SDR Transceiver by Ed Durrant DD5 Lima Papa. Well, as always, it's your very kind generosity that keeps this show advert free and paying our way on the internet. And along with our monthly subscription donors, we'd like to thank Jeffrey Montgomery, who just comes on with a quick, simple message, but very, very poignant. It's a great job, fellows. And I say that's wonderful to hear that say you're enjoying the show, Jeffrey. And many thanks, for your donation for this episode. It keeps us going and paying our way and keeps us advert free, which I know is very important. Now, what the guys have done is they see value in what we do, and they turn that value into a monetary figure, and they visit icqpodcast.com/donate, where they take that monetary figure of value and they send it our way in the form of a donation. And say if you enjoy the show, you can certainly do that, and that helps us pay our way. So we'd like to appreciate everybody that's helped us out this episode. Right, well, we're off to look at the news now and see what's going on in the hobby over the last fortnight as we join Martin, Leslie, Dan and Edmund to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including Fly Me to the Moon, and the WIA are reviewing the amateur radio exam system. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, welcome to episode 353 of the ICQ Podcast and tonight's news roundtable for that episode. Tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Leslie Butterfield, the real Leslie Butterfield, G0CIB.
Is there another one of me? I don't know. Good evening, Martin. Great to be back on again.
It's great to have you. I mean, the other group do an impersonation of you, mate.
No,
they do. So there you go. Moving the other side.
You should listen to those episodes, Leslie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Bill Barnes does a real good impersonation of you, Leslie. Chris Howard's known to do a good one as well.
I'm shaking my head in disbelief, but there you go.
Yeah. And Martin Ruffle was playing your train jingle from to beer or coffee. And the other day...
I'm actually drinking orange at the moment.
Oh, you're all right then. You're all right. Moving the other side of the pond, we have Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hi guys, how are you all doing?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a fun one tonight. As I say, shame Leslie hasn't really picked up on it. The others do a good impersonation of him. He's going to have to listen now. And move back this side of the pond. Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG is with us. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody. Is there an unreal Leslie Butterfields then?
Yeah. Well, we're all there. Now, Ruth Willett, KM4LAO, contacted me and said, unfortunately, she's sitting an exam today, so she can't join us, but she's looking forward to joining us from her next episode.
Good luck, Ruth. Good luck.
Yeah.
Get through them. Great.
Yeah.
Good luck,
I'm
Ruth.
hoping she does well. So, yeah. Right, let's start the news stories.
I've been found out.
You have been found out. It says, fly me to the moon. And then they start talking about, there's a number of amateurs that have been trying to do Bitcoin transactions off moon bounce. Leslie, this is alien to you because you're pound notes, aren't you?
Why can't they go to the Cayman Islands, you know, with a suitcase full of money like normal people? I really don't know. Oh, you tell him the rest, Martin. Go on.
Well, I think it's done for technical reasons. I don't know why they were doing a Bitcoin transaction. And some of these Bitcoins are worth silly money. Others are worth literally nothing. But if it was one of these things that allows you to test out, I would suggest, what's going on. And if you're bouncing it off the moon, well, there's moon bounce involved as well. So something you probably won't get involved with, I suggest, Leslie.
Of course, Martin. This thing called tulips, I mean, for those in the financial know, it's they will understand that. I think here there's two generations. There's the younger generation that loves this stuff, and the older generation sort of tends not to like it. I mean, I take the advice of Munger and people like that. I'm not going to touch Bitcoins with a barge pole. No chance. Not my cup of tea at all. But the story did amuse me, Martin. It really did amuse me. Over to you.
Yeah. Well, as I say, Bitcoins could be worth an absolute fortune. Not all Bitcoins are equal in value. There are various Bitcoin operations out there, and some are worth the square root of nothing. So I wouldn't get too excited about Bitcoins at this point in time, unless you know what you're doing.
There are ruder variations of that, but they're not. We can't use that the phrases on this program, HI.
No, we have a clean rating, Leslie. We have
Absolutely.
Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, if you can do it, why not? That's the whole thing about AM radio. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of really too much practical about Earth Moon Earth communications to begin with. So why not send Bitcoin over it? And ham radio and Bitcoin go back a ways. I'm looking at an article right now, and I'll send you the link that shows that ham radio and Bitcoin actually go back to like 2014 or something.
Yeah, so it looks like it's had a following since then, and it's something we need to be aware of. It does worry me because it's not underwritten by any government. At least your dollar is, underwritten by the American government. Our pound is underwritten by the UK government, and likewise around the world, other currencies. But Bitcoin worries me,
Martin, it's a bit like a fictional gold, and the only reason it increases its value is there's somebody else that wants to buy it. If nobody else wants to buy it, then it's worth nothing.
Correct.
You're absolutely right. It's not underpinned by any government, so it's very, very volatile. And you can make lots of money out of it, but if the deal goes wrong, no government will help you at all. It's like, well, you're on your own, guys. That's my understanding.
Yeah, mine too. Edmund, you've more of a financial background than us. What's your thoughts?
Well, actually, I don't have a financial background, really. But my thoughts are the show notes mention a dipole. Well, unless you are on 70 centimetres and you're a member of the SXDX group, you're not going to be doing moon bounce using a dipole. And shout out to Mike X-Ray Zero, Charlie, Mike Sierra for their endeavours using very weak signal modes. And on top of that, it also mentions HTs, well, with the exception of a few handhelds that cover 10 and 12 metres in SSB, which are quite hard to come by these days, I gather. Apart from those, all the handhelds are 2 metres and 70 centimetres FM, well, in Europe anyway. I know there are other bands available in the States. So I don't think doing this would be as easy from a technological point of view as the show notes make it out. But the two big stumbling blocks are, first of all, amateur radio and commercial endeavours traditionally weren't supposed to mix, I thought. And even if they were, the second point of it was surely these transmissions would have to be encrypted to stop bad people intercepting them and doing bad things. And there again, encryption and amateur radio traditionally don't go together. So I will not be touching Bitcoin for the reasons already mentioned, but I certainly won't be involving amateur radio in it, Martin. Back to you.
Hang on. I've just got a call from my tax office ringing me up.
Yeah.
I think these transfers are meant for like disaster situations, the proverbial SHTF event, right? And then if you have Bitcoin and you can transfer it to somebody via amateur radio, well, who's going to stop you, right?
Yeah. But at the moment, if it's just an experiment and it's one of these Bitcoin operations that worth nothing, if it's worth nothing, then you wouldn't bother to encrypt it. It's just a test, isn't it, that it can be done.
Right.
I think somebody's just having a bit of fun and so, like amateurs do. Can we do this? That's why the story come about.
That's true.
Right.
And remember, guys, if you want to transfer money to Leslie, it has to be cash. He likes to put it in his mattress.
It makes me sleep at night,
Yeah. Oh, we're getting silly. I think we're going to have to move on.
I know.
Yeah. Moving on. The WIA seeks a review of amateur radio exam system. And WIA is the Wireless Institute of Australia. Now, they're having a look at their licensing. Ed would have known more about this if he'd have been with us, because he lived in Australia for a long time. But I think it's a good thing that they're actually doing a review. Edmund, do you want to go first on this one?
Well, I don't really know what to say about this other than that you don't necessarily need to know what the answer is in order to know what the answer isn't. And I'm not convinced that simply upping power levels and giving people more bands to play with on top of the ones we've got already is necessarily going to be the answer. But beyond that, Martin, I don't really know what to say. Back to you.
Yeah, well, everybody wants more bands. Let's be honest about it. Everybody says, we need more bands. But as I've found in the digital modes is that you take, for instance, what I've been playing with at the moment with the digital radio on FM, on, say, VHF and UHF. There are multiple systems, and everybody's so diversified at the moment. Sometimes it's difficult to find somebody to talk to. So, the more bands you give people, great. And I know for experimenting, but you could probably get some of the bands just by asking for them and on a notice of variation if you wanted to experiment there. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a good idea to review the license classes regularly, just because, things get out of hand. And if, things are always changing and new things come to light, and by making tweaks to the licensing system will improve the situation, well, I'm all for it.
Yeah, as I say, I agree with you because they're working on a system and they're trying to keep up to date. So it's good news. Leslie, last thoughts on this one?
Well, I sort of the first paragraph sort of caught me, and it says, why are they doing this? And it said the lack of growth of newly licensed operators in Australia. And then it's sort of the technical things that they're going into. These things, Dan's right, these things need to be reviewed. Technology is changing so quickly now. If we stand still, we're actually going backwards. Just look at how the Zoom and Teams has been the explosive use of that in due to COVID, and so I think yes, a review is a good idea. Just question: are we doing the right things? How do we need to improve it? Not quite sure about some of the technical aspects, because when they're talking about sort of getting newly licensed people, that's really how local clubs and national societies market the hobby, and I think that's a different thing. And I think certainly in the UK we tend not to do that too well. But that's just my own personal take. Over to you, Martin.
Fine on that. Well, as I say, I think reviewing is always worth doing. And there's some of the things we've done in the past on the podcast is reviewed and asked the questions. I did that a few weeks back when I said, should we rebrand the hobby? And in fairness, it was a question to ask. I don't know the answer, but if we don't look at these things and we don't look at new things to do, then we will end up with our head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich and not see what's going to happen to us overall. I like the next news story, and I'm going to pass it to Dan first, but the International Space Station is going to switch on its crossband repeater for Field Day. So, Dan, you were off to Field Day with your club. What do you think?
Yeah, so this will be great. I mean, I'll give lots of clubs and or Field Day participants a chance to make that elusive satellite contact. I was just mentioning before the show that our club has attempted to do this for the last 15 years and have yet to be successful. So maybe we'll actually do it this time.
Dan,
Yeah.
have they? They're probably trying to do things too complicated. Have they ever tried sort of cross dipoles made out of coat hangers?
Well, I don't know. We've done that. We actually, one time you talk about making it too complicated. One guy actually brought out his Azel rotator setup, and even then we didn't quite make the contact. But I have my my Arrow antenna, and I'm gonna give it a go this year, and we'll see if we can do it.
It's not like anything's in the way, it's a straight up there. That's it, I mean, I think when the ISS went over, picked up the signal on a little handheld over here. So if you can pick the signal up, you can get a signal up there. Surely.
Oh yeah, and obviously you can see it, right? So it's all line of sight. So that's not a problem. The biggest problem on Field Day, of course, is the number of stations trying to do that, and so that's really the problem on Field Day. It's not a technical problem. It's a QRM problem.
Everybody's trying to do the same thing, but is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you might find, Dan, that while everybody else is trying to do the ISS, you might get in on SO50 or something like that just to catch them out. Hi.
Well, you're right. And so somebody gave me a tip on Twitter the other day, and it was I tell you the truth, it was a satellite I'd never heard of. So I'm maybe that's the ticket, is to use a satellite that's not that well known.
Yeah, well, as long as you set the schedule up, you shouldn't have too much problems on a satellite that most people don't use. But the other one you took, Leslie, it's still easy to work it. It really does depend on how high above the horizon the satellite or the ISS is. If it's down on the horizon and you're in a built-up area, you've got about two hopes, and Bob died a long time ago. So that's what I would suggest. But certainly looking at Field Day, it's got to be well worth a go. You fancy try and do it on Field Day, Leslie?
Well, we've got a Field Day coming up. I think it's in August. So I know we definitely play HF because we always do. And we got some new gear. So I think we got an ICOM 7300. So we're going to try and play that with that in the field. I'm not sure whether we did it last year, but that'd be good fun.
Yeah, well, the US Field Day is 26th and 27th of this month, so you can have an extra outage, I suggest, Leslie.
Well, I'm sure the committee will spend it, especially as I hold the purse strings.
Yeah.
Say, let me give you one little warning about that IC 7300 on Field Day. If you're going to be in a multiple transmitter situation, it doesn't work so well.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I imagine it's filtering the front end, is it, Dan?
Yeah, that's the main problem.
It reminds me of the old. Well, you probably can't remember this one, but I used to work on the old D11 systems, and on the receive side, we had to have a pre-selector for exactly that reason. Otherwise, it just overloaded the receiver.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biggest problem with a lot of rigs these days. Even like handy talkies, you think, oh right, well they're designed for wideband receive, so they receive everything. When the problem is, you got on top of Reigate Hill where there's a pager site, a few kilohertz up from the amateur band, and it blurts through. Blurts through the top.
Those sets do work. but the performance is reflected in what you pay for them.
Yeah, yeah. So, Edmund, we've left you out in the cold again. Sorry. Are you going to have a go at working this International Space Station when it comes over?
Yes, because I've never yet had a successful contact through it, and the cross beta has already been reactivated as of a couple of weeks ago after hearing nothing on 437.800 for months. I was very pleased to receive a signal about a fortnight ago, I think it was, and it was very strong, even on my collinear. But one of the troubles with the crossband repeater is its popularity. If you don't get in, if you try repeatedly and fail to do it, it's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong. It could just be that so many other people are trying to do the same thing at the same time, and inevitably one or several of them will be running a lot more power than you. Having said that, though, you need to, it can be done, obviously. Remember to turn the 67 hertz tone on transmit, because I know of at least one person who failed to access the thing for that reason alone. And the satellite starts high as it approaches you, so when it first comes over the horizon, if you tune upwards to 437.810 and then decrease the frequency as it comes over top of you to mitigate the Doppler shift effect. But I do agree with the comment that was made a moment ago that possibly if there are other satellites going over during ARRL Fields Day that are a bit quieter, you might do better to get your satellite contact through one of those rather than focusing purely on the International Space Station, because you can bet that loads of other people will be trying to go through the ISS, not least because this story has been well publicised everywhere. And I also get the impression that the ISS is not the easiest satellite to work. When the crossband repeater was first turned on in September 2020, I think it was, I read or saw or heard quite a few amateurs who were experienced satellite operators who were having trouble working through the device, not just because of QRM from other stations. And one of them speculated out loud that could be because there's so much other electrical equipment on board the ISS that the squelch has to be turned up really high, so only the strongest signals from the Earth will get through. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But good luck if you do try the ISS crossband repeater, and if you manage it, you're ahead of me. But I second the advice. If you have another option available, like SO50, for example, or AO91 or PO101, Duata 2, if we're talking FM satellites, that is, you might do well to consider one of those in preference to the ISS.
Yeah, so we're pretty much in agreement on that one. So that's good news. Right. Next news story. I'm quite excited about this. Aluminium-Ion battery development. Now, I know this is early and they're trying obviously to experiment with this, but the initial results look like it has 3 times the capacity of a lithium-ion battery for the same size, and it can charge up to 60 times faster. Obviously, there's heat implications, but what an interesting move forward this will be, because I think the biggest problem at the moment is recharge time on batteries. Leslie, you want to go first?
Well, yes, it is a very, very interesting story, Martin. And I remember many, many years ago, I did a project on a disabled wheel stand, and my particular bit I was asked to look at was the batteries. And at which point I thought, yeah, I can do this project. And then I found that the guy that was running the course was also head of Ever Ready Development, at which point I almost died. But yeah, batteries are very, very complex things, and you're absolutely right. The problem with this is the heat dissipation, and that in turn affects the performance. like I said, watch this space on these things, because batteries is going to be the in thing. There's a lot of development space, and I think there's room for really cracking innovation. It's something that's really needed. Things like, well, we have our handhelds, and that's fine, but things like with the move over to hybrid cars and all that, there has been some problems with charging. Not on this particular one, but I do remember reading something. There's a document with the IARU. I need to look into that, but I do recall it. But it's certainly a watch this space story.
I think so, and it'll be quite good. Edmund, you got any thoughts on this super duper new battery?
Well, if it has a power density 3 times better than lithium-ion, then I wouldn't, through choice, be stuffing huge or high currents into it over a relatively short period, for the very reason that Leslie said, because if there are problems, if there are impurities in the battery's construction, or if the battery is shorted out accidentally or otherwise, then what was that mobile phone a few years back? Was it the Galaxy 7 that were all recalled because a few of them went thermonuclear in the blink of an eye? I could see something similar to that happening. So yes, it's wonderful that this technology is being developed, especially if it doesn't weigh very much, so you could take one of these batteries up to your local SOTA summit. But I think at this early stage, if somebody offered me one to play with, I would be very, very wary about charging it up. And if there was an option on the charger, I would select the snail's pace charging option. And I also wouldn't plug it in and then leave it unattended overnight and hope that come the morning my house hadn't burnt down. I would definitely be attending it and watching it with a beady eye. But technology marches on, progress marches on. So as long as it's safe, then this is a good news story, isn't it, Martin?
I think so, and I think it will also improve. And this battery technology is moving on probably almost faster than electronics technology, and we may be having this discussion in 10 years' time, saying, well, why were we ever worried about it, But it's in its infancy at the moment, and I think it has potential. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'd just throw in one little word of caution. A lot of times we get stories like this about some fancy new technology, and it's going to be great, and it's 10 times better or whatever it is, and this time it charges up 6 times faster, right? And then for whatever reason, the technology doesn't pan out. Some unobserved engineering problem where they can't be made cheaply, or what was that?
Unforeseen.
Yeah, unforeseen problem, and they can't be manufactured economically, or all of a sudden aluminum gets real expensive. Not that that's going to happen, I don't think. But you know what I'm saying is there's a big difference between the science and the products. And that's the engineering of it. And I'll be a little skeptical till I see good engineered batteries on the market.
I think what you're saying is that there's a huge difference between invention, which is your science bit, and actually getting stuff on the marketplace.
Correct.
And well, let's say you got 100 ideas, 95% of those will go in the bin for whatever reason, and I'm fine with that. Because you can't get to whatever the end game is without going through that 95 first.
Right.
That's just part of the process.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's engineering. That's the engineering.
Well, no, we didn't think of that. Or unforeseen things pop up, and well, that's what we do, and we carry on with something else. Improve and try again.
Right.
But often one idea will spin another idea off and an improvement. So it's nice to see that there is, and this is quite a step forward. If it works and if it can be manufactured, could be quite a big step forward. Dan's right. The cost of production might be just too high. I mean, we've seen this on many products throughout history where there's been great products, but in fairness, they weren't accepted or they didn't make it into mainstream because something else did, which is sometimes a bit of a shame. But there you go.
It's part of the process, Martin.
It is. It is. Right, moving to our last news story. Dan, you put this one up. It's the future of amateur radio continues with a session addressing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. This is an IARU news story, and I think this is what we did with Stuart a couple of episodes back. The RSGB did a survey. We had our say. You guys filled in the survey. Various countries around the world also did surveys. I think this is what they're discussing. I hope we get to see what comes out of this one. What do you think, Dan?
Well, yeah, so I'm in agreement with you. I think that a lot is going to depend on what actions are actually taken after this. But this is a great first step, right? If you don't take these first steps, your last steps aren't going to lead you anywhere. In other words, so they've come up with a list of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and none of these are really surprises. I think looking over these lists, it is apparent that most of them we already know about, but it's good to get it all on paper and then to be able to talk about what we do in the future based on these results.
Yeah, I agree with you, because once you've documented it, at least you can move forward and pick out the ones that are the biggest threats or the biggest weaknesses and work on those to do improvements on them. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
Well, I must confess here that I only just realised that this news story had been included. I was out and about doing a Gateways on the Air activation, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and got back home a lot later than I was anticipating. So I will confess I was very disorganised here, and I haven't seen this or read this. So in a not very organised way, I will say that I've not read it and thought about it, so there's nothing I can add off the top of my head, Martin. Sorry, I've failed you. I was doing amateur radio.
It's amateur radio. Amateur radio never fails. We just have a different perspective. Leslie, last words on this one?
You've hit the nail on the head, Martin. We all have different perspectives and different opinions. And you can't run national societies, it doesn't matter where they are, on opinions. We've got to get some data to put this together and see what radio amateurs really think. Where are we going with this? And we put together the data and we analyse the data and we come up with a direction in which the hobby is going to go. Different countries are going to have different objectives. I'm fine with that, but we've got to get the data in, and this is what it's all about. Over to you.
Certainly is, certainly is. So all in all, I think we're in agreement on this one. And just a little side note, we got a baby fox that keeps turning up in our garden, and it keeps wanting to come in our house, which we were quite worried about. And he's just stuck his head in the back door, and I had to shout at him to go. But fortunately, I had my microphone muted, so there you go.
Martin, he does have a name. It's called Basil.
Those are other names that aren't repeatable. Oh, dear. Okay. Right, let's find out what you've been up to since the last time you were on. Go on, Leslie. What have you been terrorising the world with?
No, I haven't. I've been behaving myself and being a good boy. Right, what we did, very kindly invited to a talk with the Sutton and Cheam Club, which you're a member, and what we did is we done on how to conduct an RF assessment, because the new rules all changed over here. And anyway, I had the talk done, which I thought, okay, and on the Tuesday evening, I was coming home on the 179 bus from Ilford, sunny Ilford, and all of a sudden I got this email from Ofcom saying the new rules had come out. Now, bearing in mind, I was giving the talk on Thursday evening, and there was an almighty panic. Anyway, we go through the night, get this done, work through the night, and I got the talk done. And then I breathed a sigh of relief, and it's had 660 odd views so far. And some of the feedback I've been getting, very, very good indeed. And I thank people for giving me the feedback. It's been a really good experience. But what we try to do is, what does this actually mean for radio amateurs? What do you need to do? So it was a great success, and I'd like to thank the Sutton and Sheen Club for allowing me to do it. Thank you very much, guys.
Well, it's a pleasure, Leslie. I did attend that meeting. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was one of the few Sutton and Sheen meetings I've actually been able to attend due to work schedule, but that was a good one. That was a good one. I enjoyed that. So that was all good. And yeah, your YouTube numbers will go up for a long time yet. People will come across it and look as well. So that's the beauty. You can put something out and you think, oh, nobody's that interested. You go back about a month later and find loads of people actually looked at it. So yeah, it's good.
It was fun.
It was fun, yeah. Dan, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, I have a new job. I am now the content manager for the Amateur Radio Digital Communications organization. If you recall, that group is the one that recently sold all those IP addresses.
They are, yeah.
And so now I'm their content manager. I'm doing PR work for them and writing up web content and newsletters and all that kind of stuff. And they're actually paying me for it.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Wow.
Well, that sounds good, Dan. And maybe when you get your feet more under the table, maybe you can come back and tell us more what they're doing, and if they're happy with you doing that, of course.
Oh, for sure they will. For sure they will. In fact, that's part of my job is getting the word out, and I'll be doing a feature on it for ICQ podcast.
Oh, that's good news, Dan. That's real good news. So getting a new job's a good one. Leslie and I are also trying to get new jobs, but that's another story.
Yeah, we can't make a contribution to society to get our beer tokens,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So I suppose that's kept you very busy and you've not got any air at all, Dan.
Well, I've just started on Monday, so I'm pretty new to it. I'm still doing all the usual on the air activities, and I've also, another thing I've been doing is I've been playing with these Raspberry Pi Picos. I don't know if you heard about those, but they're little microcontrollers. They're made to sort of compete with Arduinos, and I've been having fun playing with that.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I've not played with a Pico yet and not ordered one, but yeah, that does sound interesting. I might have to have a look at one of those. I must admit I've got a Raspberry Pi 4 up and running at the moment It's on soak test at the moment for reliability. I've no reason why it wouldn't be reliable, but what I want to use it for later, I need to make sure it is reliable. So it's been up for about a couple of weeks.
Well, so you can program these things with what's called the Thani IDE on the Raspberry Pi 4, and that's what I'm doing. And it runs a thing called MicroPython, the Raspberry Pi Pico. And it's pretty cool. The whole thing is pretty cool. I'm eventually going to try to make a keyer out of it, like I have an Arduino based keyer now. I'm going to try and make a Raspberry Pi Pico based keyer.
Yeah, and some would say, "Why are you doing it, Dan?" And you'd say, "Because
just
I can."
For fun. Yeah, just for fun.
Just for fun, and because you can.
And then, well, you see, the nice thing about the Pico, and maybe I'm taking too much time here, but the nice thing about the Pico is it has lots more memory than the Arduino. So I ran into a problem with the Arduino-based keyer, which I was using the great K3NG software, by the way. I'll give K3NG a plug on here. But I ran out of memory on the Arduino for all the features I wanted. But that's not going to be a problem with this Raspberry Pi Pico because it's got a ton of memory.
Well, there are different Arduinos and different power, the different size, different power, different memory sizes, but the basic one is fairly limited in memory, as you well say. So, yeah, I've actually got a little Arduino project that I'm just needing to box up, and some of you may actually see it at rallies. It's one of these scrolling character displays, and we can program it whatever we want into it, the message, and it just runs all day at the back of a stand or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the electronics is built. The hard part is put in the box. So there you go. So Edmund, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm based on the West Sussex coast in the south of England, near the seaside town of Worthing. And the big news locally is that on Thursday, the 10th of May, a new repeater went on air for the first time. Its call sign is Golf Bravo 3 Charlie Quebec GB3CQ. And the unusual feature is that it is on the 10-metre band. There are two other 10-metre repeaters in the UK. Both are licensed, but both of them are currently not operational. There is a third repeater which is operational, which cross-bands between 10 metres and 6 metres, so you transmit on 29 megahertz and come out on 51 megahertz from memory. But this means that GB3CQ is currently the UK's only operational in-band 10-metre repeater. The output is on 29.620 megahertz, with the input being the standard 100 kilohertz lower. And if the output frequency sounds familiar, then it's because it shares that frequency with, amongst other things, the Kilo Quebec 2 Hotel repeater. I think that's its call sign, the one that's located in the Catskill Mountains on the outskirts of New York. So when F2 layer propagation gets going in a few years' time, that could make things interesting, but that's where CTCSS comes in, and the tone is 88.5 hertz, which is the standard tone for virtually all repeaters in the county of Sussex. Cavities for 10 metres are very expensive and physically very big, so the keeper has not done it that way. What he's done is he's got two separate sites about a mile, 2 miles apart, whatever it is, one for receive, one for transmit, and they're far enough apart that the transmitter doesn't desense the receiver. The receiving antenna is currently a quarter wave vertical. The transmit antenna is a 5/8 wave vertical. And there have been tests going on recently with audio levels and all that kind of thing. So there may be slight interruptions to service and things being tweaked now and again. But to all intents and purposes, the repeater is now on air, and the plan is to have it on air all year round. It's not just going to be switched on during the summer sporadic season, for example. And the license application says that the sites are going to be linked by internet, but it is a standalone system. It's not going to be connected to the internet in the sense that there are no plans to allow connections via Echolink, for example. The system's working really well. On its opening night, we had stations from Germany calling in, and Berlin in particular. Earlier today, we had a very strong signal coming in from Northern Ireland. So the whole thing seems to be working quite well, and there's more information on qrz.com if anybody wanted to have a look. And there's a group of about half a dozen of us locally who monitor it. I won't say 24 hours a day, but very regularly. And we're all a friendly bunch without exception. So if any of you hear the repeater, then please do give us a call. And it's quite easy to identify because it sends its ident in CW every 10 minutes. And it's not particularly fast CW either. Every radio amateur out there, whether they know Morse code or not, knows what CQ sounds like. So if you hear a repeater ident with da-di-da-dit, da-da-di-da at the end, then you know that you've heard are the latest repeater on the air here in West Sussex. Any questions?
Yeah, what was the full call sign again, Edmund, please?
The full call sign is Golf Bravo 3 Charlie Quebec GB3CQ.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to have a look at it. Thanks, Edmund.
That's all right. I mean, under flat conditions, it's basically coverage along the West Sussex coast from, say, Brighton to the east to maybe Bognor Regis to the west. Not much coverage to the north because the South Downs hills are in the way. But yes, obviously locals will use it all year round. But I think the main purpose behind this was sporadic E, basically. And if that gets going, and particularly in a few years' time when we get F2 layer propagation on 10 meters, then pretty much all bets are off, if if you see what I mean. So I'm very excited. And it's actually really good to report that, as well as the local enthusiasm, the repeater keeper, Roy Golf 4 Whiskey Tango Victor, has received messages of almost support, or certainly interest from people all over, well, not all over the UK, but dotted around the UK and who are well outside of the Sussex area. So I think there's a lot of interest in this endeavour, and particularly that the science behind it, how it's being done. I know Roy, the keeper, has been asked more than once, are you using cavities? How big are they? How much did you pay for them? And where did you get them from? To which the answer is no. But I suppose it's just a case of thinking outside the box a little bit. You know, there are ways round these things, and in the particular case of this, you can dispense with cavities altogether by using two separate sites for receive and transmit that are far enough apart that they don't cause problems with each other, but not so far apart that the receive footprint and the transmit footprint under flat conditions are radically different. I think Roy said there's about 80 dB of what relative to what, I can't remember, but 80 dB between the transmit and the receive over a mile path as the crow flies or something like that. So very high tech. And yes, I've even got a converted CB rig to operate through the repeater. Roy had one that he's very kindly given to me, and then a donation of the exact same model came in from somewhere else. Martin Butler might know about that. So I'm using a SMC, South Midlands Communication Converted CB, and it works very, very well, even though it only puts out 3 watts. Obviously, I'm so close to the, receive antenna in particular that I could run flea power and get in no trouble at all. So apart from that, I've also been doing gateways on the air, which seems to have been very well received overall. Haven't seen anywhere as near as many comments about it's not real radio or words to that effect as I was half expecting to see. And if you go onto Facebook and the Freestar International group, people who are going out and activating will often take photographs of their portable location. And there are some really beautiful panoramic photographs that people have put on there. Not just me, I hasten to add, of where they've activated from. So we've had people at castles, the seaside, on top of mountains. And even if you just like looking at pretty photographs and you don't have any interest in gateways on the air, it's still worth having a look on that Facebook page. And kudos to Oscar, 2 Echo 1 Hotel Whiskey Echo, and other people, many other people. Shane, Mike 0 Victor Uniform Bravo, Bruce, whose call sign I've forgotten, and I might have got those two the wrong way around anyway, so apologies if I've got that wrong. Everybody involved, you know who you are. Well done on doing it and creating some activity on the airwaves. But apart from that, Martin, I've got nothing to say. How about that?
That's terrific stories.
Yeah, well, I did say to you, you could have done that as a feature, but you've pretty much done a mini feature there on that repeater. And yeah, you were right. I was down in Worthing a couple of weeks ago, met up with Edmund, and I donated a rig that will run on 10 meters for the receiver, that group. Now, whether Roy used mine or not, it's up, but it's in the bag, and hopefully he used it.
Yes, he did, Martin, but by a strange twist of fate, he had exactly the same radio with exactly the same modification, exactly the same in all respects. So I handed over the radio you gave me to him, and as far as I know, and as I say, I'm not the keeper, so I don't know absolutely everything about this, but as far as I know, he is using it. And 7 days after I handed it over to him, he handed over an identical radio to me, because I thought initially he was simply handing on the one to me that you gave to him, but it's not. He had one already. And what's the chances of that?
Wow,
Because I can't imagine there are that many of those out there.
I wouldn't have thought so, but hey, if it got use, it would earn the square root of nothing at a junk sale, and it would have, if I'd have stripped it for spare parts, it would have been something that would have gone in my box. But what it's being used for at the moment is far more useful.
It's a really nice radio, and I tell you what, if anybody wants to get on 10 meters up the repeater end of the band, if they can find one of those, it's a SMC, South Midlands Communication Radio. I forget the exact model number, but if you can find one, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
Assuming you don't also want SSB, because that modification that South Midlands Communication did converts the high-low power switch into the 100 kilohertz repeater shift, so you can have that on or not if you want to go simplex. So yeah, great little radio. I'd never heard of them before, but it works really, really well, and thank you for bringing that make and model to my attention, Martin.
Yeah, no problems. Right, well, other things I've been doing, boring you as always, the digital talk group project has moved on another gear. We've now added D-Star to the group, so we now have Brandmeister, D-Star, Yaesu Fusion, and NXDN in our group, and hopefully a couple of others to add fairly soon. The D-Star came on very, very quickly. Adrian and another guy that I know, suddenly the hardware was loaned to us, and it was connected to the group very, very quickly. So at some point in time, I've got to buy the hardware or some hardware, but at the moment it's been loaned to us, and we've now got D-Star on in our talk group. What else I do? I did a talk for the Appledore Amateur Radio Association this week, and thoroughly enjoyed doing that. Believe it or not, it was on the ICQ podcast, but they thoroughly enjoyed it, so that was a good evening. What else I've done? Like Edmund, I've been trying to get on this Gateways on the Air event. Saturday was a bit manic. I was doing other things, and there were a few people that were coming through with very poor audio, and I just got annoyed. I know it can be good audio because I've spoke to Oscar on this group, but I was a bit annoyed, and I was doing other things Saturday. So the rest of the week I've got time to do some before it all closes, I believe, on Saturday. And one other thing I've been playing with was a active antenna for Vhf Uhf. I must have bought this nearly 20 years ago. It was a Howes AA4 active antenna for 25 megs to 1.3 gig, and I'd half built it and then not got much further. I must have moved on to something else because I was in a hurry or something else, and I couldn't find the documentation. I searched all over the internet, and there was no documentation for this, and I knew I'd seen my documentation within the last sort of 4 weeks. So I then had another turnout here. I found the documentation, made a scan of it, and I uploaded it to mods.com and mods.dk, that is. And I suggest if you come across a manual you've got that nobody else has got on the internet, offer it to one of these manual sites. Mods.dk don't charge you for a download of a manual. But so it is. you're putting something back into the hobby. Yeah, if you've got a manual, and let's face it, we do lose them or they get tatty. So I've uploaded it. I uploaded it to them earlier in the week, so that's good. And the last thing I got to do is a new can of freeze arrived, which is going to get my IC880 is going to get a big dose of freeze to see where the fault is, see if I can convince it it's a fault with cold. That might help, otherwise I might heat it up. But I've got some strange things going on with my IC880, but then I have done for years with that one. So I've been reasonably busy and having lots of fun on the digital talk group. So there you go. That's what we've all been up to.
Martin, can I just mention a couple of other things really quickly? Sorry to interrupt. Thank you. The final day of Gateways on the Air is Sunday coming up, so the day that this podcast is released. It's an 8-day event, so I'm going to try to be active at some point during the Sunday. So if anybody hears Mike 0, Mike November Golf /portable, then please do give me a call. However, it won't be very late on Sunday because the following day is the June summer solstice, the 21st of June, the longest day of the year daylight-wise in the Northern Hemisphere. And very early that day, I will be jumping in my car and driving up to Gallywood Common in Essex, fingers crossed that nothing unforeseen happens, because there is a special event station. The call sign is almost certainly going to be Golf Bravo 2 Juliet Sierra Sierra, June summer solstice. And this is a special event station that has happened every year since 2014 from Gallywood Common. And it's a double celebration this year. Not only is it the summer solstice, but 2021 is the 10th anniversary of Essex Ham. So I'm going up there to help out Pete, M0PSX, Dorothy, M0LMR, and the great and good of amateur radio in the Essex area. Don't know if I'll be operating, logging, making tea or coffee, washing up, whatever it is they want me to do, I will happily cooperate. But if everything goes to plan, please do listen out for GB. It'll be GB something JSS, probably GB2 JSS if previous years are anything to go by. And I might have the pleasure of working some of you under that call sign, because as well as the great HF station that they're undoubtedly going to have, I'm going to take some VHF equipment and possibly sit in my car in a socially distanced style. So might even work somebody on 2 meters, Martin. That'd be a novelty, wouldn't it?
Certainly would. Well, wish Pete, Dorothy, Richard and the rest of the team all the best from me, and I hope it goes really well, guys. Okay, well, all's left to me to do now is thank you guys for joining me tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB.
Thanks for having me, Martin. There was one story that I was rolling about laughing, but it's been a really interesting night tonight.
Yeah, we had fun and you've enjoyed yourself, so there's nothing wrong with that. I'd also like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU.
Well, my pleasure. Warm up that Earth station and I'll send you a Bitcoin.
Oh, well, you bet. I'll better warm it up now. Put it on the bonfire. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I seem to have done an awful lot of talking this episode towards the end, so thanks to everybody out there for listening to it and your forbearance if 10-meter repeaters aren't really your thing.
No problems. It was good information. Okay, well, all's left for me to do now is say 73 to you all, and we'll continue with the podcast. 73, guys.
7-3.
Cheerio.
7-3.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin, M6BOY. We start with news that the RSGB's EMF group has been working with Ofcom to customise its guidance for radio amateurs. and they've updated a guide they have online which covers things like, do I need to comply, carrying out a compliance check, managing compliance, and keeping an appropriate compliance record. Now there's tons of links and information and videos on an RSGB webpage, which can be found at rsgb.org/EMF. The great news is I've checked most of the links out this morning, and so it looks like that you don't need to be an RSGB member to access the information. So certainly if you've got questions regarding EMF and say you're looking for some answers, that could be a good place to go. So we'll put that link obviously on the ICQ podcast webpage, but as I say, you're looking at rsgb.org/EMF. We'd like to thank listener Mike Brennick, call sign Sierra Papa 2 Juliet, and Mike dropped us a note and said that your listeners might be interested in some piece of information. He'll be active on the little sailing ship G90, I think it's pronounced, which is a 60-ton steel, 24-meter length, 230 square meters of sail on 20 meters and 40 meters SSB. He will be setting sail probably towards the North Baltics, and he's intending to call CQ, and he'll be with the call sign Sierra Papa 2 Juliet /MM 3 times a day from the 26th of June to the 30th of June. Activity obviously depends upon navigational duties. We don't want you getting lost, Mike, but say he'll keep an ear out for anything that comes back from there. So I say great news that one of our listeners there, they'll be active there in the North Balkan seas. So say certainly listen out to the call sign Sierra Papa 2 Juliet /Mike. Now coming up a little later on this year, the Portable Operations Challenge will be coming back on the air again, and to increase participation in the challenge, there are parallel regional or local group competitions based on how entrants are positioned in their final results. Those who would like to do this for their group region should send an email to regionalcontestlist@gmail.com to be added to the list of groups coordinating these local overlay activities. So say for more information about the Portable challenges can be found at the website foxbikehotel.com/challenge. Now I know it was a great event last year and was enjoyed by many, so certainly get that one in your diary as I say, as they guys ramp up the competition for later on this year. Right, now we head over to our features episode, which is a double features episode. We have Parks on the Air and a review of a XIEGU SDR Transceiver. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
For today's feature, I'm joined by Vance Martin, N3VEM, one of the Parks on the Air developers, and is with us today to explain what Parks on the Air is, and this year's special event, the Summer Plaque event, which will take place July 17th and 18th, 2021. Good afternoon, Vance. I'd like you first to introduce yourself so that the folks on the podcast get an idea who you are and how you got involved in Poda to begin with, which that's the abbreviation for Parks on the Air.
You bet, Bill. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come on and talk a little bit. Yeah, like you said, my name's Vance Martin, November 3 Victor Echo Mike. I've been a ham for, I guess, about 7 years now, and my specific involvement with Poda started, like a lot of other folks, all the way back in 2016 with the ARRL's National Parks on the Air 1-year event that they did, and there was basically a lot of people that really enjoyed that, and so there was a number of programs that spun out to basically keep the portable park activity ongoing. So I was participating in the program just as a ham that really loved portable operations, and the administrator of the program, W3AAX, reached out at one point to a bunch of folks and just said, hey, I need some people to help work on developing our database and website and all that fun stuff. And I was fresh off of my information systems degree, so I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'll help out. And now, a number of years in the bag, there's a small team of us that basically keep Poda up and running. So that's kind of my background and how I ended up involved with Parks on the Air.
Oh, wow. I remember that 2016 event. That was fun. So this is a group that's keeping that portable operating event going on. Can you give me some examples of activating a park, or how you were participate maybe from the shack trying to hunt down the stations that are out activating parks?
You bet. Yeah. Parks on the Air. There's purposefully not a lot of rules in the program. It's really designed just to encourage folks to have fun and get out portable into parks. So you can participate just like SOTA has its, there's the people that go up the mountains, and then there's the people that chase from home. And in Parks on the Air, it's similar. We refer to the people that head out to parks as activators, and we refer to the folks who participate just from their home stations as hunters. So, and oftentimes many people do both, just depending on the day of the week. But as an activator, really the only requirement is that you take yourself and all of your equipment to one of the designated parks in the program, which in the U.S. is pretty much federal and state-owned parks. And then there are also a lot of parks in many countries. I think there's at least one park in most of the counties in the UK. There's a lot of parks in Japan in the system, and a number of other countries too. So basically you get yourself and all your equipment into a park, and to be considered a successful activation, you just have to make at least 10 contacts. And then through our website, there's a link where you can email in your logs, and they get loaded into the system. And that's essentially all that's required as an activator. And for hunters, it's even simpler. For hunters, all you have to do is turn on your gear, and if you hear somebody calling CQ Poda, you answer them, and as long as you're in the activator's log, that's what gets you credit as a hunter. So it's really a low-key program, not overly involved with too many rules, because it's really all about having fun.
Yeah, that is really simple. I did notice you have a website, parksontheair.com, and from there you had a map where I could find my local parks. Like the closest to me are state parks, Milton State Park, K1385, or Shikellamy State Park, K1421. What's the K numbers mean?
It's basically the identifier. So each park in our system, because it would get very involved to, while you're calling CQ, say the name of some of the parks, and for people that aren't from central Pennsylvania like we are, if they were trying to say Shikellamy over the air, that might trip them up a little bit. So each park that's in the system has a designated number that is just a quick way to identify the park. So basically all of the U.S. parks start with a K prefix. So K0001 up through I don't even know how many parks we're up to now. And similarly, parks in the UK start with G dash and so forth. So it's essentially the kind of the DXCC prefix followed by the park's number for each park.
Oh, very cool. That makes sense. Yeah, you're right about Shikellamy. Although I can't even say Lancaster right, and I'm from the state.
Yeah, the worst one is one of the parks that I activated while I was traveling for work was, I'm not even going to try to spell it. It has a lot of consonants, and there's a Q in there and a bunch of T's, but it was, I actually had to ask one of the park rangers several times how to pronounce the name of it, but it was Mashmucket Brook Creek State Park up in Connecticut. So yeah, Mashmucket is one that if I had to say that over the air a whole bunch of times, I'm not sure how well I would have fared.
Yeah, that's a good one. I do like that. I did sign up for the stats a little while ago website just to see if I actually worked anybody, because I've never activated, but I'm pretty sure I ran across some parks on the air stations calling CQ. And interestingly enough, I apparently worked 4 park stations on CW on 60 meters of all places. Yeah, one phone, one data, but the rest were CW. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the beauty with, because the system is based off of, the activators submit their logs. If anybody that doesn't have an account with Poda, if you go and sign up for an account, if you've ever contacted a station that submitted a log, you'll see your contacts pop up there in the system. So yeah, there's a lot of folks that are very pleasantly surprised when they register for the first time to find out that that they already qualify for some of the basic awards just based on the activity that they've done without even realizing it.
Yeah, I just downloaded a certificate here a few minutes ago. Apparently, I worked a station during Support Your Parks Winter 2021 weekend.
Okay, yep. Yeah, and that's a obviously there's a lot of different awards that you can get through the parks program, and the Support Your Parks is basically something that we do seasonally. So that we do a winter, fall, spring, summer version of that Support Your Parks event. And actually the event that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, our Plaque event, actually always coincides with the summer Support Your Parks weekend. So we have a weekend summer fun-filled activity is kind of what we like to think of it as.
Yeah, I want to get to that here soon. But the one last thing I wanted to ask about, just to get in the background or on Parks on the Air, I use a website for Soda called Soda Watch. I have it up in a browser tab continuously. Is there anything like that for Parks on the Air?
Yep. If you go to poda.us, or you can go to, if you go to the main parksontheair.com, there's links through to spotting pages and things like that. But poda.us is the official Poda spotting page. And we actually have some new versions of that are in beta right now. So pretty soon there's going to be some new versions of that spotting page also. But yeah, that's where you can go and you can see, who's on the air right now. You can look if people are planning on going out. Sometimes they'll announce their schedules through that site, so you can see when people are going to be on the air. But pretty much any time of day, wherever you are, there's usually, a half dozen up to 30 or 40 people on the air at any given time, with the weekends being the busiest, obviously.
Oh yeah, that's the same page that had the map on it that showed me where the nearest parks were.
Yep.
Just so folks know, we're recording in an afternoon during a weekday, and I'm seeing calls I recognize here. KD8 IIA is on right now. K7TAA is on right now. AI5P is on. KN0R is on. There's a lot of folks on right now. Somewhere on the band's activating parks. So that's really neat. And it looks like you can just self-spot or spot somebody you work here by just hitting the button on the bottom of the page to add a spot, correct?
Yep. Yeah, you can self-spot right there on the page. And there's, from a technical standpoint, since I help with my day job for Poda, which is still my night job, but yeah, my day job for Poda, I help with all this technical stuff. And in the spotting page, we actually have a bunch of neat features baked in too. So you can spot somebody if you work them. You can self-spot if you're in a park to announce where you are. For our CW activators, if you schedule yourself on the scheduler and then go out and start calling CQ Poda, we actually have a hook into the reverse beacon network. So if you've scheduled ahead of time, you don't even have to spot yourself when you get out there. You put it on the schedule that you're going to go out. When the reverse beacon network hears you calling CQ Poda, we grab that information and we put up your spot for you. So we have a bunch of stuff like that goes on the spotting page to make it easy for folks to announce when they're on the air.
That's great. They did that with the Soda Watch page too. That for the folks that are doing CW, I think digital modes too. If you let them know beforehand on the I'm going to be out rough this time, they pick it up off the reverse beacon network, and that's great.
Yep. Yeah, we do some similar things for FT8. FT8 is kind of like I don't know if I would call it the surprise mode in Poda, but I see there's a lot of folks that go out and do activations on FT8. I guess just because of how simple it is to take like a small laptop and stuff out with you portable now. There's a lot of folks doing that.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Being a wallpaper chaser and has my radio room wall plastered with various awards and contests and that kind of stuff. I heard a rumor that you guys offer fabulous cash and prizes if you participate in the summer Plaque event. I'm just kidding, everybody, but there is awards, so I want to give you a chance to talk about that.
You bet. Yeah. There's definitely awards. Now, it might not actually be cash, but I guess if you took it to a pawn shop, maybe you could get some cash for it. but yeah, in addition to just the normal, participation certificates that we do year round, once a summer we do what we just call the Poda annual Plaque event, which we do at the same time as the summer Support Your Parks that we talked about. And essentially what it is during a 2-day weekend, and this year, like you mentioned, it's July 17th and 18th, and that's UTC. So the beginning of July 17th UTC through the end of July 18th UTC. Basically, it's standard Poda rules apply. So if you go to parksontheair.com and look at the rules and operating guides and things like that, it's all standard rules. But then what we do at the end of the weekend, we give a couple weeks for folks to get logs submitted and get all the data caught up. But then based on the activity for that weekend, we give away, I think it's 11 plaques now that we give away, and they're really nice plaques. They're big, full size, 8 by 10, 8.5 by 11 size plaques. They're real nice black piano finish, so they're nice and shiny. They're really great hardware for the wall for those folks that are like you that are into that. And it's all based on just stats from that weekend. So we do a plaque for whoever makes the most contacts as an activator, whoever makes the most contacts as a hunter, and then we have some that are mode based. So we have the most voice contacts for an activator and hunter. We have a CW variant, and the activator one of that is actually named after somebody who was very big into portable park operating that has passed away, but that was N2CX. So our most CW contacts activator award, we actually call the N2CX Memorial Award. He's one of the folks that a lot of people who were in Poda early on credit with getting them into CW specifically to be able to kind of make more contacts while out portable. So that's the CW activator, and then there's a CW Hunter award also. And then we have the digital variant, so that's all digital modes combined. So most digital contacts for an activator and a hunter. And then we have our two that are very similar to, if you're into, like a lot of VHF, UHF folks like to do roving. So we have a kind of a roving version of the Park Award. So during that weekend, we give away a rover plaque for the person that activates the most unique parks during the weekend, and then we have a chaser version, so the person who contacts the most unique parks during the weekend. And then the last plaque that we give away is a club plaque. So if a group of at least 3 operators go out as a club, we give away a plaque for the most contacts for a club activation. So those are the plaques we give. It's an event that is a very busy weekend. It's a lot of fun. During last year's event, we've been doing this for 4 years now. During last year's event, probably the highlight of the event as far as the plaques and the activity goes was from Justin. His normal call sign is KN4MQR, but he actually last year registered for a special event call sign for the weekend, and I believe it was K4L was the call sign he used. And in 2 days, he put 52 different parks on the air. I mean, it was incredible listening to. I had the spotting network up most of the day and would tune to the frequencies to see where he was going. And he blitzed park to park to park. One of the things that Poda does, if you remember all the way back to the National Parks on the Air event, if you remember, there's some opportunities for like twofers or threefers where, maybe 2 parks overlap each other, or there's a park that is a trail that runs through another park. So he planned out a whole schedule to kind of hit some of those multi-park locations and really racked it up. So that was probably the most exciting thing to watch last year. For folks that choose to participate, it's pretty easy. Just go on the website, get yourself registered, and start making contacts. Last year, for the event as a whole, I think we had a little over 20,000 contacts in the 2 days. There was, I think, about 170 folks that activated like 350 different parks, and they contacted or were contacted by, depending how you like to think of it, a little over 5,000 different hunters. So it's definitely makes a very busy weekend, and if you're into creating your own pile-ups, Poda during the Plaque event is a great time to do it.
Oh, wow. That's going to be great. And I do like all the categories you have for the plaques. That definitely hits all the highlights for folks on the different things that people enjoy doing. And that is an amazing participation. So very exciting. And you're right. It's going to be CQ Poda all weekend that weekend.
You bet. Yeah. And I like to tell people too, don't let if you're chasing hardware, don't let the numbers scare you. There are some of these that are very attainable. If somebody really wants to go out and decide I'm going to get a plaque, the digital modes, digital stuff is very accessible for a lot of people, and we like to encourage digital operation in parks. So we actually count digital contacts unique by mode. So if somebody wants to head out and do a bunch of FT8 for a while, and then switch to PSK 31, and then switch to RIDI, and then switch to Thor, or whatever obscure digital mode you enjoy, each mode change can, Olivia, there you go. Each mode change can basically counts as a new unique contact. So if you're into digital operating, there's a good opportunity there. And also, if you're in an area, or if you don't necessarily feel you're as competitive for one of the big plaques, one of the things that we're doing new for the first time this year is essentially a lot of the same things that we give plaques for the whole program. We're actually going to share those same statistics essentially by location. So even if you don't think you can vie for the most contacts as an activator, we will at least be sharing, hey, who made the most contacts as an activator in Pennsylvania or Texas? And again, because the program is international, we'll have the same information by county in the UK or by province in the US. So there's even if you aren't chasing a plaque, there'll be some fun location-based statistics where you might see your name pop up.
Oh, that's great. I do appreciate it. Where can folks learn more about Parks on the Air?
Yeah, there's really three main websites essentially. So parksontheair.com is kind of the front end website. So that's where you see information about the program and the rules and ways to participate. And then if you go to stats.parksontheair.com, that's basically the website where we share all of the statistics. So that's where you can go to see leaderboards and, activity by park and by location and things like that. And then the third one is the one that we already talked about, which is at poda.us, which is essentially just like Soda Watch. It's our spotting page, which also has some lookup information and look up stuff about parks and things like that. But parksontheair.com is really the best place to start.
Oh, thank you for that. I really appreciate you coming on there today and explaining the Summer Plaque event and what Poda is. Any last words before we call it a day?
No, the only final word that I would add, obviously with ICQ podcast, I'm assuming has quite a few listeners in the UK. So this event has always been obviously very, very heavy in the US because that's where the program got started. But we would love to see a bunch of our UK friends out in the UK parks those weekends too. I would be honored if I had the opportunity to ship a plaque across the Atlantic. So we'll see if any of our UK friends would like to join us for the weekend.
Yeah, I hope we get a lot of participation this year from the UK and the Europe in general. That'd be great. And I'll personally give Edmund a a ring and give him a hard time to make sure he gets out on the beach, at least do some VHF.
There you go.
Pretty sure some of the places he goes are already in the database as parks.
I'm sure.
It's common when he posts stuff on Facebook about it. So at any rate, thank you very much. I do appreciate the talk today on Parks on the Air.
You bet. Thanks, Bill. 73.
7-3.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Hi all. As I've just bought myself a new portable transceiver, I offered Martin and Colin a review on it for the show, in case some of you are looking also at getting a new portable HF rig. The radio I bought is the XIEGU G90 20-watt SDR portable radio. 20 watts I find is the sweet spot for portable HF radios. While I have operated with 5-watt QRP radios, the increase in power to 20 watts does make a difference. The next option up is a 100-watt mobile radio, and while these are about the same size and weight as the G90, the batteries that you need to run them are not. So, why a Chinese radio, not an American or Japanese one? Well, the only similar radio would be the Elecraft KX3 with its 15 watts output. Alternatively, I could use a 100-watt mobile radio with the power turned down to 20 watts. Both of these alternatives fail on price when compared to the XIEGU. Prices vary with offers from time to time, but generally the G90 is a €450 radio, and this includes taxes and shipping. I already own a 20-watt XIEGU radio, the X108G, which is the predecessor of the G90. The G90, however, has several advances over the X108. The G90 is a software-defined radio with a waterfall. It also has a built-in antenna tuner, a Morse code decoder, a speech compressor, and a more sensitive receiver. It was only when I got the radio that I realised how good a radio it is, with fully adjustable DSP receive filters and several customisable user interface settings. A simple way of describing the G90 is a portable version of the classic ICOM IC7300. Most of the features that I am used to on my IC7300 are on the G90 as well, but of course packed into a far smaller case. In fact, one of the disadvantages of this, as with most portable rigs, is the size. The display, although clear, is small. All control buttons are small. There is an optional GSOC external controller for the G90, which provides everything on a 7-inch tablet-like screen, but it has to be carried along with the rig to the portable location, making the combination a less practical solution. After just a few minutes using the rig connected to my home antenna, I was generally very impressed with the G90. Just using its 20 watts, I was able to call 2 SOTA activators, and they came back to my first call. On receive, I can hear everything that I can hear on my IC7300. This rig is not perfect, no portable rig is. However, as has already happened, being an SDR, changes to the way the radio operates or additional features can be added through firmware updates. This is now common on modern rigs and removes the need to send the radio back to a dealer to get new features added. Let's take a listen to some snippets of the quite loud audio from the XIEGU G90, and then I'll come back to list the things that I would like to see changed or added to the rig.
Mike 5, Delta, Whiskey, Roger. 5, Delta, Whiskey, Whiskey, Delta Lima 7. Delta Lima 7, Uniform X-ray.
Good morning and many thanks for your activity. Your 5 at 9, nice signal, QSL. Many thanks for the short contact, 7344.
Okay, the Foxtrot 4, please. Foxtrot 4. Oui, Florida 4, uniforme, Delta Yankee, Foxtrot 4. Secteur de 57, Foxtrot 4, uniform.
Aus. Und er geht auch nicht an alleine. Ja, ich weiß auch nicht, ob das man dem Hund dann aufzwingen kann in der Hundeschule.
There were some fine adjustments necessary after the repair, which changed the clipping.
November Hotel Victor Stroke 2, is that Roger?
Otto Victor Giulietto qualcosa. 5 più, grazie.
Tocca farci sentire perché altrimenti non ti risponde nessuno.
Cubanda 40 metri.
That was some reception of a fairly ropey 40-metre band. It does underline that the receiver is both sensitive and selective. In my opinion, however, one failing on the G90 is the lack of digital noise reduction. Its small brother, the X5105 and the new X6100 has it. So I was surprised to find, while the G90 has noise blanking to remove pulse noise, it doesn't have noise reduction. I asked Radioddity, XIEGU's worldwide distributor, to ask XIEGU whether this is going to be added in the future. The response was that there have been some delays due to the upcoming launch in August of the new small X6100 Hf 6 meters all-mode rig, but that work on the G90 firmware upgrade will start next month, July 2021. We'll have to see if this addition has made the cut. Something I feel that could be easily resolved to provide a service to older hams like me with failing eyesight is to change the microscopic text on the buttons from being grey on black to fluorescent orange or yellow so that they are more easily readable. Radioddity agreed to pass on this suggestion. I realise that there is a lot built into this radio, but as it is so compact, it feels heavier than I had expected. It's only a little longer than its predecessor, the X108G, but I'd swear it's twice the weight. A lot of that weight is the large heatsink that is forming half of its case, but despite the size of this heatsink, the radio still gets warm after some time operating. Keeping the rig out of the sun is required, not only to make reading of the display possible, but also to avoid adding extra heat to the radio. There is no space left in the small case to add a fan, so XIEGU has addressed this issue in that the optional stand to lift the display to a better angle also includes a temperature sensor controlled fan to help with cooling. XIEGU say, however, that the rig's finals are so conservatively rated that the raised temperature in normal operation should not be an issue, but to avoid leaving it in full sunlight. I'm a fan of RF speech processing rather than audio level systems that most rigs come with. After testing the one in the G90, however, from a summit, I'm impressed with the XIEGU implementation. The report I got was that the difference between no compression and compressor on was my signal went from 4 and 4 to 5 and 6 audibly. That is quite an achievement, and I could also see on the waterfall that the compressor does not make the signal wider as some do. Another point I have reported back to Radioddity is the RIT setting control. It changes receive frequency by 1 Hz at a time. You heard right, 1 Hz. I had suggested that they make this at least 10 or possibly 100 Hz. Perhaps this change may find its way into the upcoming firmware update. When creating a portable radio and packing so many features in it as in the G90, the control buttons have to be small, which they are, but at least they have a positive click, which the buttons on the previous model did not. The smaller brother, the XIEGU X5105, has a built-in battery, which I think is very practical, but the G90, like its predecessor, the X108G, has to have an external battery. With the new flat lithium batteries and the wide voltage range that the G90 can operate from, perhaps I can find a way to fit a battery under the optional stand if I buy one. Then again, I could use the battery as the stand. I realise that some of the points I've just raised are as much wishes from me for any portable rig rather than actual problems in the G90 design. The real question is, how do I feel operating the G90, and is it worth its €450 price tag? The answer is the radio astounds me. The receiver is crisp, the controls and remote control over the CAT interface are responsive. Those 2 SOTA stations that I mentioned earlier gave me a report 2S points down on what I would have expected on the home station, which outputs 300 watts, as opposed to the G90's 20 watts. Would I recommend others to buy this radio? If it fits your portable needs, and if you can buy through a local dealer, yes. In the US, this could be MFJ. In the UK, Sinotel. In Europe, PileUpDX.com in Sweden. And the worldwide distributor is Radioddity, who have bases in China, the US, and a warehouse in Berlin, Germany. I bought my G90 from Radioddity, and have found them to be open and helpful. I'm sure the other XIEGU dealers will be as well. I mentioned earlier that the CIV computer interface, also known as the CAT interface, was responsive. Why is that important? It's important to me as I intend, as I do on my X108G, to have the option to use an old Android smartphone as an external controller and display when I operate portable, leaving the rig inside my rucksack. The G90 has a detachable control head and comes with a connecting cable, but the advantage of a smartphone over the head with a small display is that the smartphone display will always be more readable in sunlight than the 2 to 3 inch display on these rigs. That being said, my first summit activation with the rig was in sunlight and I was able to read the 2-inch screen fine the whole time, but I find operation using the smartphone to be easier. XIEGU do sell an optional GSOC external controller, but I prefer the smartphone approach on cost if not for other reasons. The smartphone I already have, and the software costs €5. The GSOC costs €350. It's true that the smartphone does not have the waterfall display that the GSOC has, but I'm willing to give that up, as mentioned earlier. Taking a 7-inch external controller along on a portable activation is more bulk and weight that can be excluded when using a smartphone. For those whose interest I have caught with the mention of a cheap remote control software, the Android software that I use is from Dan Thoma Y03GGX and is called Pocket RxTX. It supports many radios, and through user configuration additional ones can be added. I wrote the XIEGU X108G and G90 support files for the program. Configurations for already defined by the community or by Dan radios can be downloaded from the central repository directly into the app. The app supports USB, Bluetooth or network connectivity from the smartphone to the rig. For the network, which can be a local LAN or over the internet, a computer, either a Windows PC or Raspberry Pi, needs to be present. For the local connection, as an external display and controller, USB is used, but if the radio supports Bluetooth serial data, it can be a cordless connection. The G90 does not support Bluetooth at the moment, but I have just received a €14 Bluetooth dongle that is designed for the ICOM IC7000 that I may be able to adapt to work with this rig. For the USB connection, the smartphone has to support the OTG on-the-go mode. Most recent phones do, and an adapter from the phone's micro USB or USB-C socket to a USB-A socket is required, so that the 3.5mm TTL serial to USB cable that comes with the G90 can be used. These OTG adapters only cost €2 or €3. In my portable activation setup, the phone connects to the G90 via the cable and adapter, and the existing XIEGU microphone remained connected directly to the rig, as do any headphones or internal speaker. If you want to use the network connection, the free Jarek server software that runs on Windows or Raspbian also takes care of audio, and so the smartphone speaker and microphone are used, which of course means you can operate your rig from anywhere in the world that your phone can get an internet connection. In my opinion, how does the G90 compare with the well-known leaders in portable HF rigs? The most talked about portable rig at the moment, the ICOM IC705, doesn't have a built-in ATU and only outputs 5 or 10 watts. It does, however, cover VHF and UHF and can run off an internal battery. It's currently selling in Europe at €1,400 compared to the G90's €450. The Elecraft KX3 is a compatible rig with 15 watts output and a built-in ATU and has an internal battery. It also has 6 meters, which the G90 does not. It costs in the base configuration €790. The classic small HF portable rig is the Yaesu FT818ND. It is only 6 watts output and has an internal battery but no ATU. It costs €640 at the moment. Considering features versus price, my choice was the XIEGU G90, mainly for the higher output power. Going from 5 or 10 watts to 20 watts when portable does make a difference. As always, your needs will be different to mine, and your choice between the rigs I have mentioned and possibly several others, especially if you only operate CW, can be completely different. A good second-hand rig might be an option for some of you. Isn't it great that we have so much choice at the moment? Best 73 from Ed, DD5LP.
Well, then, many thanks to Bill and Ed for their features out on Parks on the Air and the XIEGU transceiver there from Ed Durrant. So hopefully, guys, as always, something for you to get your teeth into, and 2 mini features there of differing levels. So as we always say, hopefully something for everybody there going on. So thanks, guys, for doing that feature for us. Now, we've obviously got some updates on the DMR network, Dad. And as a fine man of wit said, to blip or not to blip.
Yeah, correct. Well, we've had this discussion of to blip or not to blip, and some people say, yeah, well, I need to blip it to lock my device on. Guys, if you're going to blip to lock yourself on, bearing in mind now there are 4 different systems that all link together. A quick blip may not link you into all 4 of them. So what I'm saying is you ideally put a call through letting people know you're there, or at least blip it for 2 to 3 seconds, preferably 3 seconds, which will be just enough for all of the 4 devices to connect. Now, I say 4. If some of you haven't already picked this up, D-Star went live on our talk group fairly recently, and it was a surprise to me. We had a lot of help from one of our listeners. I'm not going to say who, because I don't want you hassling him to do the same for you, but I do thank the guy for loaning us the hardware at the moment to get D-Star on. At some point in time, we'll get our own hardware and let him have his hardware back, but that's a good one. And yeah, the talk group does seem to be working very well. Different times of the day. There are times when I see people on that honestly I'm asleep, but there's always somebody on or making calls, so it's worth putting a call through. So there you go, Colin.
Yeah, there you go. And look, anything you want to find out about that DMR group, head across the ICQ podcast webpage. We've got a link across the top of how you can connect stuff on, and an FAQ section as well for you. So again, guys, lots of ways of getting involved with that project. So as I say, and as always with the ICQ projects, these are obviously free to get involved on and free to enjoy and the hobby and extend what we do in the hobby. So check it out. Right, well, we need to do some thank yous, as always. So we'd like to thank our donor this episode, Jeffrey Montgomery, who donated a one-off donation along with our monthly financial subscription donors. Many thanks, guys, for keeping our show advert-free. We'd like to thank Leslie, Golf Zero, Charlie, India Bravo, Dan, Kilo Bravo 6, November Uniform, and Edmund, Mike Zero, Mike November Golf, for taking part in the news roundtable. As I mentioned, Bill, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Ed, DD5 Lima Papa, for giving us our features, guys. Many thanks there for helping us out and doing those reviews and interviews for us there. Find that side things from there. Right, I'm looking for our list here. I don't think there's much else we need to cover apart from, obviously, we have a Mrs. B that is recovering from an operation. So if any time we need to make her a cup of tea and find her a fine chocolate biscuit to keep our spirits high, I think now is the time. So we need a perfect cup of tea and a fine chocolate biscuit. And I now hear that Tam Tams, that's a very famous Australian biscuit, could soon be appearing on shelves in the United Kingdom. So maybe look out for those as well in the future, Dad.
Yeah, Roger on that one. Well, yeah, for those who sound a bit worried now, because Mrs. B, yeah, she did have a knee operation on Thursday. Back home, recovering, and yeah, as happy as always, so that's quite nice. Yeah, I will make Mrs. B a cup of tea, find her a biscuit, and the Tam Tams. I'm sure Adrian, M0GLJ, will be trying to track down where they're coming into the UK. He says that's one of the things he sincerely misses about being over in the UK. But yeah, Colin, we'll make your mum a cup of tea, we'll find a biscuit, and then I'm going to sit and relax with her for a little while. So I'll leave you in peace, Colin.
No problems at all. Well, 73s, and say look after Mrs. B. And guys, we'll be back in a fortnight's time with another episode for you. So in the meantime, catch you later, guys, and enjoy your hobby. 73s.
Yeah, 73.